Okay, welcome back everyone. So we've got a few videos left to go. And one of the things we're going to look at now is how to add a voting feature to each individual film. And we're going to add that to the film detail pages. So let's start with that. When I look at the list of films, if I click on Die Hard, okay, I have already rated Die Hard. And what I want to do is I want to remove that. But if I look here, I don't have a filter. I don't have a way to filter my films. So I'm going to add that very quickly now. So if I go to films and I go to admin, I'm going to make a few changes here so that I can filter the films. So to do that, we're going to create a class and we're going to call that ratings admin. We'll call it ratings admin, and we'll say that takes from modal admin. And then what we'll do is we're going to add a list display. So this way it enables me to see all the films in a list. And that will have, whoops, that needs to be in a tuple. And whoops, that needs to have the, and in fact, I'm also going to create a filter. In fact, I need to have, so that's going to be a list filter. So I can filter films by name. Okay, and then what we'll do is we're going to make a simple small change here where we've got admin site.register and we're registering the rating class, the rating model. We're going to do it slightly differently. We're going to say rating and we're going to save it like this, ratings admin. So now if we save that and if we go to our ratings admin page, this is how it used to look. Now if I refresh that, you can see now that I can now filter films out, and I can also filter by user. So if I just click on Die Hard, and let's also, now I can see that I've made a mistake here. So it's good that I've done this. I'm not going to change it for everything. I'm just going to change it for this one. So basically, when I run that script, if we go back to here, if you remember, I created a script to import reviews or just to add reviews. And if you remember at the bottom, I added a bunch of scripts at random. What I should have done really was here where it says ratings object create. I think that should have been get or create. So by doing that, I think it would have stopped it from creating duplicates. But I didn't do that, so I've clearly got duplicate objects. I think that should be like this. Save that. It's not going to make any difference. I'm not going to call the function again, but just so you know. So now I've done that. Now, as you can see, the problem that we have here is I have the same film rated more than one time by one user, and that should have never happened. Okay, and you can see they're all random numbers because I call that random function. Die Hard is truly a great film. Let's leave that number 9 in. In fact, you know what? Let's remove all of them. So let's remove all of them. And delete. Okay, because what we want, now that we've done that, if we go back to here, where it says rating 8 of 10, and clearly what it's doing is it's showing the first rating, I believe. If I refresh that. Oh no, sorry, it's showing 8 out of 10. It shouldn't be showing that. It's because in the template, where it says film, your rating, here what we have is we just have a piece of text that says 8 out of 10. So what we don't want that. We now want a button there if we don't have a rating. So to check first of all if the user has done a rating, if we go back to our views and our functions, where it says film detail, here we want to see if there's a rating already. Now we can only know if a user has done a rating if the person who loads this page is a user that has is authenticated. So if a user that's logged in. So we're keeping this bit here. We're keeping this bit about well, let's keep all of that. Okay, and we're going to say if request dot user dot is underscore authenticated, then what we'll say, so if request.user is authenticated, then what we'll do is we're going to say rating is equal to rating. Oops, this is a class, right? So we're going to look at a ratings model. So rating dot objects, and then we'll filter. So we want to filter first of all the user. So basically we're basically checking all the ratings table, and we're checking to see if the user is equal to request.user. So in other words, if the user is logged in, let's check if there's in that user table, if there's the user that's logged in, if they exist, and they also exist. So film equals film. So we referred to film already because we've collected the film object here when we did a search for the film that we passed into when we look for the request for the film. So now it's going to check to see if there exists a rating from that user for that film. And then we'll just do first. And the reason why I'm doing first is because, as you know, there's a few more ratings than there should be, but that's fine. So it should return it if there is one, okay? And then what we're going to say is if else, so basically if there isn't a rating, then what we're going to say is rating is equal to that, nothing. So it will return none, yeah? And then what we'll do is in the context, we'll pass that through the context, okay? So what we'll say is in context here, we'll just pass through rating as rating. So if we save that, if we now go back to our template, so now on our template for our film, where it says your rating, we're going to make a small change. We're only going to say your rating if you've done a rating. So if I go to that last line, I'm going to run a Python if statement in Django. So we can say if rating. So in other words, if a rating exists, and it will only exist if we've passed rating into the context, which we have, which we will do. In fact, to be honest, it's going to be there, but when we run if rating, if basically the answer comes back as blank, if none, then it will display none. So it will ignore that. So if there is a rating, we're going to put the rating there. Okay. And if there's no rating, we'll do an else. We'll say else. In fact, let's do an end if here as well. And if. Here, what we want now is we want a button. We want a button that is going to be called to vote. So let's call it rate. Yeah, we'll just leave it as rate for now. Okay, so I'll leave at that there for now. So if I click on save, and if we go back to our film, and if we refresh the page, okay, now we've got a button there that says rate because a rating doesn't exist. In fact, what we've missed, haven't we, is we've missed the where's our, let's take that. Let's take that there. So we'll take the icon and we'll put the icon here as well. And like this one, let's have that star filled in. So we'll say fill. Let's go back again and refresh. So we've got our star back, but it's not filled. That's not good. What did I do wrong? Oh, sorry, that here, that should be there. Okay, now also let's add some style to that button. Let's have a bootstrap button. So we'll say class equals btn, and we'll just do an outline to a button, outline primary. How does that look? If we refresh, okay, cool. So now we've got a button that comes up. However, if there was a rating, then we should see a rating instead. So to do that, we'll change that back. So here, what we can now do is we can say, right, so if there's a rating, then show the rating. Oh, but that will bring up the rating model. So from the rating model, don't forget we'll have user, we'll also have the name of the film. We don't want all of those things, we just want the rating. So if I save that, and then if we go back to here, and let's just add a rating then for Die Hard. So let's add a rating here we'll say film is Die Hard, the user is admin, and the rating is a 9, just to check. Okay, so now that's been added. If we go back to here and we refresh, now the button doesn't exist there, and now we've just got that. We've now got your rating and number 9. So we know that works. Okay, for now I'm going to get rid of it. I don't want to see it. Let's delete that. Go. Okay. And like I said, I wanted that to be filled in. But tell you what, let's only have it filled in when there is a rating. So if we go back to here, we'll say, so if there is a rating, then where's my star? Then my star should be, yeah, then my star should be filled. Okay, and if there isn't a rating, then my star should not be filled. Cool. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that should be cool. So right now, that shouldn't be filled in, which is not. And we've got our button again. Now what we want is when we click on the button, we want a modal to pop up so that we can rate. Right, this video, we are about 12 minutes in. Okay, so what I want is I've got an example here. I like to use as little JavaScript as possible. I want things to be as easy as possible. So I'm going to use something called Alpine JS, which enables me to add you know, some sort of JavaScript functionality with as little as possible, and just makes my coding a lot easier. And so I'm going to borrow this here. So this is the Alpine JS script, the JavaScript script that we're going to borrow, and this adds functionality to a lot of our pages. So here we're going to add the import into our base.file, base.html. So where we've got our CSS, we'll add our JavaScript code there. So that now adds the functionality to our pages. And what we want is we want some functionality here on this button so that we see that pop-up modal. And we're going to get the modal from, we're going to get it from Bootstrap. So let's go to Bootstrap and let's say get to Bootstrap. Let's go to modal and let's just take a simple modal to begin with. There we are. Modals are there. And we'll take a really simple modal, like, you know what that will do? We'll borrow that. So let's borrow the code for that there. And what we want is we only want the modal to pop up if the user is authenticated. So to do that, so let's go back to our code here. And we've already done this in our function. Now we're going to do it in our template as well. So basically here where we're saying else, all right, so if our user is not authenticated, then we're going to take him to log in. Otherwise, we're going to allow the modal to pop up. Right, so what I'm going to do is where we have this else here, we're going to create a div where we're going to put the button and everything else in. Everything that's going to run is going to happen if there isn't a rating. But so let's say if so first we'll start off by checking to see if the user is authenticated. So we're going to say if request dot user dot is underscore authenticated, just like we did in the function. Authenticated. There we go. Then this will happen, else this will happen, and then here, whoops, here we'll get to end if. Cool. So let's start off with what to do if they are not authenticated. So what we want is we want that line there to come in, and let's paste that there. Okay, and what we'll say is if they're not authenticated, then we want the button, well, it's still going to appear like a button, but we want a link. We're going to make it a link. We're going to say href, and we want it to go to a URL. So we're going to say URL, and it needs to go to login. So that should take us to the login page. So that's if the user's not logged in. If they are logged in, let's take that and let's bring that here. So if they are authenticated, then it's going to say the same thing, okay, except what we want is we want that modal to pop up. Let's go back to the documentation here. Oops, here. Okay, and what it tells us here is we need to add in the body tag, in the element of your HTML markup, this here, the X data, which basically says this stores a modal state of open or close using the X data attribute. We're not going to put it in the body, we're going to put it into that div. So I'm going to borrow that as it is. So is open equals false. In fact, we'll copy the rest of this as well. It says X on key down escape. So basically, if anyone pushes the escape key, then it will also set is modal open to false as well. So we'll copy both of those and we'll stick it into our code, but we're going to put it here in our div. Okay, so now we've done that. Now we go to our button and we basically say that when the button is clicked, we want an action to happen. So let's go back to here. Let's have a little look. And they say here that when a button is clicked, we're going to say on click, modal is open becomes true. So we can literally borrow that and we literally just stick that into our modal. Sorry, into our button. So that goes there. And so now what we have is we have the action prepared, but that won't do anything. It won't, because we don't have a modal here in our code just yet. So inside our div here that we've created, within here, we now need to include the modal that that our code is going to contain, right? So let's get the code again for our modal. We'll borrow that. We'll have that modal as it is, and let's stick that back in our code. And this is, don't forget, we've created this div. Where are we? We've created this div for our for what to do when our button is pushed. Yeah. So inside here, we're going to contain our modal. So our modal goes inside this div. Stick that there. Cool. So this is my modal. If I save it, and if we open up our model again, sorry, our page, let's refresh. Okay, at this point in time, nothing works yet. So the modal's there, but the modal's not shown. That's because if we go to Bootstrap, actually by default, the modal, I believe, oh, is not hidden. I thought it would be. Okay. Let's go to, oh, there, that's right. That's because in our code, by default, that window is open, is false. So let's change it. So now inside, we're going to add some of these objects here. So we're going to say class is modal, that's already there. We're going to add is modal open x show, and the x on click away. So if they click off the modal, then it goes to false as well. So let's just borrow that. Let's borrow the transitions as well. So it adds the animation. So let's borrow that, and we will stick that into our code where our modal is there. And we could do it all on the same line. Let's do that. So now we've done that, let's save it. Let's try open up our page again. Does it make a difference? When we go to our page now, let's refresh. Page is refreshed. When I click on it, I don't see a modal. Okay, so I'm actually going to have to apologize here because at the time I recorded that, the last thing that happened was it didn't work. And even though you're seeing something, even though what I'm explaining is a few seconds later to you, I've actually had to pause for 2 weeks. I've been quite busy and I had to run off and couldn't finish up that recording. So I think the main problem with what you had seen is that I didn't have the tag that said the ID. I believe that's what the problem was. So here where it says data BS toggle and it says vote model, I don't think that was there. So I've now put that in here. And here where it says ID show, I'm giving it the ID of the model that I wanted to show. So that could have been the issue. I really can't remember. Also, another thing that I may have removed, just so that if you're going to try this, it works out the same for you. In the main differences in the example that we saw, I had copied over here where it says x.modal is open. I know we have this as well. I believe I copied that as well. The modal class is already there. And I had copied these here. So what's missing from mine at the moment is I haven't got that, and I didn't copy in the xcloak and xtransition. So that could have been the issue, because actually these require separate JavaScript to make them run. Is it JavaScript or is that as part of CSS? Is it CSS? Yes, it is. These are meant to be added to CSS, and I didn't do that. I've removed them for now. It's not really important. And I believe that's all it was. That's the main difference. I may add that back in to test it in just a moment. Okay, so, but if I know that when I take it back to my web page, and if I just refresh again here, when I click on rate, this time a modal pops up. Okay, and okay, by the way, so a couple of other things I've added here, just for better contrast, I've changed the star here, and look, when I click off, it doesn't go away, so we can try that now. I made the star yellow for better contrast, and that's about it really. Oh, and I also added the title here, rate and the Die Hard for the film, so I can show you that was here. So if we look at the model, here we said text warning rate, so that bit's in yellow, and then the film title has been added there as well. And let's try that one thing that we just took out. So if I just go back to that and I click on that x.clickAway equals false, so that when the user clicks off the modal, does it make it disappear? So let's just add that here. It could be anywhere here really. Oh, another thing I did was where I have the modal class, I also added modal dialog centered, and that's directly from Bootstrap. I'll show that in just a moment. So in Bootstrap, blah, 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 where's modal? If we scroll down just a bit more, there's an example of how to center. There are we, vertically centered modal. I believe it was that. So when we click on that, it's centered the modal directly in the center of the page. And so I literally just borrowed that there. That was it. So let's take it back. Did I save that? No, I didn't save that. So let's save that and let's go back to our page here. And if we just refresh, and if I open that, that works. And if I click off it, it still doesn't work, but that's okay. I'm not going to cry about that. So now what I want to do is I want to start putting the buttons in here. So what we want is we want the ability for the user to be able to vote when they click on a button. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video here, because I feel that we have the modal working, and to make the form work as well is going to take a bit more time. And I think that should go into a separate video where I've got time to explain how HTMX works and how we post a form, and how we're going to do that for the 10 buttons that will represent, you know, the review being from 1 to 10. So I'll stop here and I'll see you guys in the next video.